So, yeah, at this point, oh, okay, I had hired Christopher Hill. He was an attorney, or he may still be, with a firm in Zanesville. I think it was Graham and Graham was the firm name. I had hired him out of pocket. I initially went to talk to these attorneys because I wanted to file a civil lawsuit against the city for their actions. And I took all the evidence, I took everything I had, and I was explaining the situation to them because I thought at the time that's what was supposed to happen. Like most people these days, this I was acting in my ignorance, going to these people thinking that they could do something to help me and navigate through the court systems to get remedy. Well, I was wrong. Um, let's see. It says it there. I don't see it in the docket, but yeah, at one point I had filed a grievance and got a response back that essentially the way I understood or comprehended, rather, is a better word to use, the way I comprehended the letter was that Christopher Hill was cooperating with the prosecutor, which I believe was Emily Tarbert, and the quote unquote judge at the time, which was William Joseph. If I think he's still on the bench in Zanesville, his son anyway. It was his father. So, yeah, go figure. A son takes the seat of his father in a court. Yeah, like that's not nepotism. Or, I mean, even if it's not, let's say even if he had the merits to take that seat, I think the honorable thing to do would be not take that seat and go take a seat somewhere else in a different jurisdiction, just as to not put off the image or the illusion of a potential conflict. But they don't care about that. They get away with whatever they want to do, whatever the hell they want to do. So, yeah, at one point, so I fired Christopher Hill. I think I ended up paying him like $500 out of pocket. He said he could do it for $1,000, but I fired him. And once I became aware of what was going on, and I took charge of the situation, and I went in and I spoke to William Joseph and explained the situation to him and told him about the fraud and that was nonsense and everything else. And I thought we had come to an agreement that the case was going to be thrown out. Well, what this asshat did was create a nunc-pro-tunc dismissal entry, which he claimed, oh, you know what, they changed it. Okay, I'm gonna have to pull that document out because the initial dismissal, they had dismissed it based on a oh no, it says there plea negotiation. Um, yeah, okay. So they didn't change. They did change it at one point. I'll have to go back and see if I got the evidence of that. But so yeah, so they created based on this conversation that I had. I thought I was just having a candid conversation in private um, with this jerk off, and he turns around and creates a plea deal or plea negotiation out of it and dismisses the case in a manner that at the time I didn't think I would be able to reopen and address because of the fact that I didn't sign off on this. I just simply let him know that I wasn't interested in attacking people at City Hall. I was never even there. It's nothing like that. I explained to him it was simply about getting the noise addressed and getting it fixed, getting it to go away. I was looking for remedy. I was explaining that to him, but this jerk off decides to manipulate that whole conversation and create the illusion that, well, like I had some kind of guilt, like I did something wrong, like I induced panic. I never did. Never did. They're full of shit. So that is the initial trust fraud action in 2018. You can see all there. You want to look it up. If anybody has any questions about, well, at that point I didn't really know a whole lot. So I tried to do what I could once I fired the asshat attorney, the shyster, to get myself clear of all this nonsense, but you know, they clearly had more shenanigans in store. So let's see. So the 2019 situation, you see there's a case up here. If I remember correctly, at one point I was being threatened of my property being taken, even though I was paying. It was a confusing situation. Anyway, so I ended up filing bankruptcy to protect my property, to prevent the supposed creditors from stealing the property from me. And at the time, I didn't realize it. And this is a separate conversation that I'll leave for another time, but I just want to make the point. At the time, I didn't realize it, that I was actually the creditor. I was the one that was creating value with my signature, allowing the bank to then negotiate with the Treasury to exchange my contract, my wet signature, for Federal Reserve notes and for other legal tender that they could use for whatever purposes they want to, and then fraudulently trick me into thinking that I need to pay them by lying to me, telling me that they're paying for the property out of their own pocket. It's all fraud and trust fraud. So that's a whole nother discussion, but it's still a trust fraud. There's still trust fraud actions. They're just different players in a different game. But essentially the outcome is still pretty much the same. So let's see. So next we'll go to 2020. You'll see here in these the three cases: telecommunications harassment. Scroll down a little bit here. This will let me. So case set for arraignment. In this case specifically, or in all of these cases, I don't remember if they had an arraignment for all of them or if they did all of the cases in one arraignment. I can't recall. But in just to clarify, in none of these cases from that 2018 case forward. So after that 2018 case was completed forward, I had never pled in any of these cases. Andrew Joseph pled for me. Kelly Cottrell pled for me. Jay Vinsel pled for me. These people acting in roles as quote-unquote judges on their benches, they're not authorized to practice law from the bench. That's actually a violation of federal law. I think it's Title 28, U.S. Code 454, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but look it up, please. It's practicing law from the bench. It's a violation. Anytime they choose a plea for someone or practice law in any way, shape, or form by forcing representation, a quote-unquote court-appointed attorney, this is all practicing law from the bench. Each of those actions is a violation of that law. These people they're disconnected from reality. They have no accountability, so they don't care what laws they break and violate to drag people like me through these terrorizing situations just so they can profit from it. Because on the backside, when they're creating bonds, which you should be able to see somewhere in there, there's well, they misspelled it. 7/23/2020. It's supposed to be bond order filed, but it says be done because they're idiots. They're creating bonds off of these cases. Not only that, they're creating secondary and tertiary bonds called penal bonds, and there's other forms of bonds that they're creating that they're selling on the open market for profit off of these actions. And not to mention the fact that because I was thrown in a cage multiple times, enabled to get my freedom, and in many instances, be able to what's the word? Develop a defense or develop my well, I guess defense is the right word. To be able to prepare. They were using all of these fraudulent actions to just terrorize me and to prevent me from being able to get a true due process and a fair trial at that. They don't know what fair trial means. They use that terminology, but they are lying through their teeth because there is no such thing as a fair trial in these courts. They are all manipulated. They are all in favor of the court. And anybody, I don't care if they're on the side of the prosecution or the defense, any attorney or judge or quote-unquote court personnel that's in that building is acting on behalf of the court, and they have a bias for the court, period. They cannot act in a neutral position. So court-appointed attorneys are in fact what's the word? It's a conspiracy, because they have a built-in bias for the court, and they use people's ignorance against them because they don't know the law, they don't know who they are, they don't know what these people are supposed to be able to not do, if I said that right. So they play on people's ignorance and they get away with it because people don't know better. It's no better than a bully on a playground bullying a kid because they can't protect himself or herself. Because they're small or they look different or whatever the excuse is the bully uses to bully the people that they can. But it's because the bully is so insecure and has so many insecurities of their own. They have to do these things to make themselves feel better about themselves. Make themselves be looked at as heroes because they walk around with a uniform and a badge on, and people look at police officers as heroes, and so they're imposters. They're absolute imposters. They fill these roles in fraudulent manners in ways to trick people into giving them honor and respect and loyalty when they don't deserve it. Because behind closed doors, they will do whatever they have to do to get their way. It shouldn't be this way. They should be held to a higher standard, not us held to a higher standard than they are. You heard in the conversation with Sergeant Patnod. He admitted it. When they act in these roles, when they take these positions and they act in these roles as public servants, they have less rights than we do. We the people. They have less rights than we do. Let me say that again. They, the public servants, have less rights than we do. Not the other way around. This is why I've been so adamant about this. It's beyond the issue of noise and a noise disturbance. That was the initial problem that cracked the shell or opened the can of worms, I guess, whatever cliche or phrase you want to use, catchphrase you want to use. It was the noise that led to the exposure of the extreme malfeasance and the criminal activity, to the treason. Because this is all contradictory. This is all in violation of the contracts and charters, the constitutions of the federal government. Let me rephrase that. The United States Constitution, or the Constitution for the United States of America. There's just so many, the terminology, it gets ridiculous sometimes. These contracts are binding. This is what these people are supposed to be bound to. And on top of that, Supreme Court decisions. Here pretty soon I'm going to pull up and do some recordings of, not in this recording, but in the future I'm going to do some recordings of the Supreme Court rulings describing what I'm talking about. The fact that government does not have jurisdiction or authority over man or woman. They only have jurisdiction and authority over the contracts in between fictitious entities or corporations. I can't remember the exact terminology that they used in the ruling. But I'll break that down for you and I'll show you so you can see it for yourself. And then I'll give you a little bit of a direction to look into if you're interested, and you can validate what I'm saying, because this isn't my theory. This isn't me making this stuff up. I am reading the established laws and regulations and the codes and the contracts, the charters, the constitutions that describe the limitations of government, that describe the limitations of these public servants, that describe what these public servants are supposed to do in any given moment in time. And in many instances, it breaks it down pretty clearly. There's not a whole lot of conjecture or confusion. It's pretty clear. It's when these people act incompetently and play games, and because there's no accountability, it doesn't really matter what they do. They can act dumb and use excuses like, oh, well, we got a chain of command, blah, whatever they want to use. We're busy, Well, it must be nice, But like I said in the conversation with Sergeant Padnoff, oh, you're busy now. What was the excuse the last 33 months or the last 3 years? What was the excuse then? It's just always a new excuse. They're never not busy. They're never not something as an excuse to do what they're supposed to do and address a situation. They failed miserably. They didn't do their job. They're incompetent. And not only that, they failed at destroying me and trying to get over on me because, yeah, I may have taken some damage. I may not have won every battle, but I will win the war. Play on words, of course. And these people will realize it when my trustee comes after them for the damages and seizes all of their assets, locks the doors of City Hall, locks the doors of the courthouse, locks the doors of the county commissioner's office, locks the doors of the governor's mansion, locks the doors of the attorney general's office. I don't know if they ever will. I don't know if it would ever come to that. But that's what could happen if these people want to play hardball with my trustee, because I'll tell you what, there's nothing they can do to get away from the trustee. And I'm using that terminology on purpose. I at this point, I don't want to reveal who it is, but let me put it this way. When this trustee goes after people, and the trustee is part of the government, by the way, everybody will pay this trustee, whether they like it or not. This trustee will find a way to make these people pay, whether they like it or not. So, that's the beauty of this situation. I may not have won every battle, but I will win the war. And when everything is said and done, and I am far away from this place, from these godforsaken people, because that's really what they are. They're godforsaken. They've sold their soul for a position, for a title, for a paycheck. They don't have any relationship with God. They don't have any relationship with nature. They don't know what it means to be human anymore. They're just no different than like an android or a zombie. Just doing what they're told. That's it. And making it up along the way. Eating people's brains, proverbially. So, I want you all to keep this in mind. Let me go back here before I wrap this up, because I think that was just the first case there. This is the second case. Let's see. Now you can see complaint filed, everything's case set for arraignment. Excuse me. It says here in the docket, defendant pled not guilty. First of all, I'm not the defendant. Second of all, I never pled anything. That was what the asshat did in the black dress with the bozo shoes on. They pled. They practiced law from the bench. I'm pretty sure I have that in recording. If not, I have a witness at the very least. Let's see. At one point, I reached out. The Lindsay Donahue Angler. She was a court-appointed attorney that the court tried to force onto me. I addressed that situation, and I called that particular attorney and told her that she didn't have authority, and I did not want her to speak on my behalf. She didn't have my consent, and I got her on record accepting that she would not be performing any fraud and speaking on my behalf in any way, shape, or form or capacity. So you can see there at one point, because I was jailed, I had to pay a bond amount to get out of jail to get my freedom back, because I was abducted and human trafficked and caged like an animal. Let's see. Then you can see there 8/17/2020. I wrote a letter to the court challenging the jurisdiction of the court. They, you can see it right there in the entry. They tried to deny my challenge to jurisdiction. They don't have the authority to deny a challenge to jurisdiction. They are required when there is a challenge of jurisdiction brought in any court, the court is required to prove the jurisdiction. Period. They cannot deny the challenge. That right there is a sign of dishonor. So right off the bat, I mean, not only practicing law from the bench, breaking and violating all these laws, not to mention the assault on me and attempted murder and everything else. But they're performing actions that they're not authorized to perform. So then you see their motion to release property that I had filed. I'm not the defendant, but that's what they kept calling me. They don't really care. Let's see. That property that I filed the motion for them to release was my gun. That was a time prior to this most recent time that they had stolen my gun, my property from me, because I either had it on me or it was near me when they ambushed me at my property there in 2020 when I was when they abducted me at that point. And so they stole my property then too, and they refused to give it back. And so I filed the motion. They refused to give it back, and then at one point I think I filed an order. Yeah, it's down a little bit farther. I filed an order to force the court to order the police department to release my property. So you go down a little bit further. Let's see, from 8/17/2020, motion to release property. I started filing my affidavits. Motion to dismiss. Let's see. That attorney there, and let's see, August 19th. Just wouldn't go away. They're like flies on shit sometimes. They won't leave it alone. They're trying to make money. They're petty foggers. They're shysters. They're scam artists. They're trying to parasite off of people, off of the situations that people are finding themselves in, being terrorized in these manners like I have. They're looking for opportunities to profit from it, by quote unquote, being a court appointed attorney and doing their part in the court and whatever. They're a bunch of jerk offs. Let's see. So yeah, okay. This one. So you may have heard in my recordings back in this time frame, there was a competency assessment that was filed. I didn't realize they didn't make it very clear what they were talking about. I just got a letter or something, and they informed me I had to be somewhere at a certain point in time, or they would arrest me, come take me again and abduct me. So I showed up at this thing. It was a competency assessment, and I had a conversation with I don't know who it was. He identified himself, but I don't know if that's true. I never saw any credentials. But you can hear that conversation and the recordings back in this time frame on this YouTube channel. Let's see, I think it was something like court-ordered harassment, I think was the title of the video, or the posting. So let's see. They recalled the warrant because you can hear my conversation, how I addressed that with the supposed doctor. Let's see, then that the warrant was dismissed. Then I filed another motion and an affidavit regarding the fraud, outlining the fraud. And then, let's see. Oh, at this point here, at this point it's September 22nd, 2020. You see order filed Defendant is duly represented by counsel and only motions filed by counsel are properly before the court. This whole shit that they were pulling, even though I fired the attorney and told the attorney they didn't have my consent, they were trying to strong arm me into not accepting any of my documents by stating that I was being represented already and that the documents had to be submitted by the supposed counsel that they were forcing onto me. So it was a strong arm tactic that they failed at. I kept standing my ground and I took it to trial, and let's see. I think it was in this particular case. I have a recording of the trial where the detective Tom Porter got up on the stand under oath and had testified that the affidavit that he had submitted to the court, which he claimed to be affiant of, he wasn't. He lied. He claimed that he was the affiant in one breath, and then in the next breath, when I challenged some discrepancies and some errors in the information on the affidavit, he claimed that it wasn't he that created the affidavit, but it was court personnel that did. And so that, in fact, he lied. That would make him not the affiant. He would just be the signer of a document that somebody else had created. Therefore, it's not a legitimate affidavit, because an affidavit, you can only be an affiant of an affidavit if you actually create the affidavit yourself, and it's your writing, it's your words. He did not do this. He lied. He perjured himself on the stand. And then on top of that, during my cross-examination, not only did he perjure himself on the stand, by admitting that he wasn't the true affiant of the affidavit, and the fact that made it to where the affidavit was false and fraudulent, he also admitted that he did not perform a proper investigation, did not consider proper evidence, and I don't recall if he admitted it or not, but it was all in a manner to support the conclusions that he wanted to draw to. He was ignoring pertinent information and pertinent evidence in a manner to create an illusion that I did something wrong. Because if he would have looked at that evidence, if he would have considered that evidence, it would have turned his investigation in a different direction, and he would not have had any presumed authority to do what he did. But this is what even the detectives see. It's not only the officers, it's not only the quota hire dispatchers and secretaries there in the front office. It's the sergeants, it's the detectives, it's the chiefs of police, it's the directors, the public safety directors, and so forth. It's all of them. They are all utterly incompetent. And at this point, I'm just not 100% sure if it's just because it's me and they want to act this way towards me, or if this is how they are in general. And if this is how they are in general, it's no wonder things are the way they are. Specifically here, here in Zanesville, Ohio. It's utterly ridiculous that these people think that it's okay, but they've gotten away with it. See, this is, as much as I want to blame them, this is we the people. This is our fault. We failed to pay attention. We didn't hold them to the standards that they were supposed to be held to. We allowed them to get away with these things. You know, you ever heard the old adage, you give them an inch, you take a mile? That's what it is. You get a property owner that doesn't, that can make do with the noise, or they move away, they decide to sell and move, relocate, because they don't want to deal with the noise, instead of pushing back and forcing the government to do what the hell they're supposed to do. Why the hell are they getting paid from wherever the money's coming from? It doesn't matter at this point, whether it's tax dollars or government subsidies or whatever, money created out of thin air. It doesn't matter where the money's, they're getting paid to perform duties and services that are supposed to be in line with the established laws, codes, and regulations established by the legislatures of the state, respectively. And then, of course, above them as a higher authority, the federal government, the federal laws, codes, statutes, the Supreme Court rulings, and the Constitution. There's a hierarchy there, just as Sergeant Patnod talked about a chain of command. It's no different even in the structure of government. There's a hierarchy, and the lower courts, the lower portions, the low hanging fruit is not allowed to act outside the bounds of the higher authority. Period. But this is what they've done. This is what they thought they could get away with, and this is why they're going to make me a very wealthy man. So listen, let's see, let me check. I think I've covered all of these cases here. Let's see. Yeah, you can see here, this is in the municipal court. They only have this small portion. It was a joke. It was an absolute joke. The docket for that would be in the Court of Common Pleas docket. I can't remember what the search query is like for their system, but you may be able to use the same family name, the same information, and look up the records there, and you can look up the docket information. I don't think it breaks down the individual documents like this. It just gives you a brief overview. But at some point I will pull those up too and go over that in a future video, and go over the dockets for the Court of Common Pleas case. And so you can see how that all played out. But I'm going to leave it there. I think I've covered most of the information I needed to catch up with. At some point here in the near future, I will be getting out some documents and going over specific documents that I've created, the contracts, the bonds that I've created with these individuals, if you want to call them that they've acquiesced to, to show you how I went through that process. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for sticking around. I'm sure this probably isn't the most entertaining thing in the world, but it's important that we learn these things and we know who we are. We know what we are. We know where our rights come from. It's important that we know the truth, because it's only the truth that's going to set us free. And knowing the truth, more importantly, is what's going to set us free. The truth in itself it's passive. It doesn't play a role actively in anything. It's just there waiting for us to pick it up and know it. And then we can perform actions to free ourselves of this construct, this matrix, this delusion. So I encourage you all to know the truth and let the truth set you free. God bless you all. Keep your heads up, and be careful out there.